What's up, you guys? Marty Schwartz here of Marty Music. Thanks for hanging out for another lesson. Tons of requests for Jerry Garcia style, Grateful Dead style. So I took the progression for the song Loser and just going to break it down for you. Lots of concepts, theory and soloing, licks, scales, the whole thing. And I hope you enjoy it. It's fun for me to break this kind of stuff down. We're just going to look at some theory about soloing over it, the chords, all that stuff. When I go for a Jerry-inspired tone, I'm not capturing it magically, but I think clean headroom. So I've got clean on my amp. I'm using some nice reverb. I'm using the middle pickup. The back pickup's pretty country sounding, and he does get a sound like that. I'm just gonna go middle, somewhere in the, not too bright, not too dark. And then I like to use some delay, and it just kind of feels more like you're in a big stadium, and it just kind of rounds out the tone like this. But I'll keep the delay off for now to go over the chords. Now the solo is over the verse chords. And so let's go over that real quick. A minor to the G, C to the D. All those chords go together really well. C, E minor, A minor. No big curveballs there. And then the next section, A minor, C, G, E minor, to the D. And then this little refrain section here, C, E minor, A minor, G, A minor, and then it starts over. So what's cool about that is there's no drastic key changes. So what I like to do is, we want to emphasize, we want to be melodic and emphasize playing over those different chords and chord tones and all that stuff. But what's a really good approach is to know kind of your core scale, or in other words, if you got lost or you kind of missed where you were at, you forgot what chord you were on, or you're just lost, you have that one kind of master scale that you can always plug in to kind of get your bearings, right? So for this progression, the A minor pentatonic works over the whole thing. And the ones I want to emphasize for right now are the E-rooted A minor pentatonic. And then the A-rooted A minor pentatonic. Just for a moment. So I have the progression in a looper, which I recommend you doing. It's a great way to practice it. So I can just have this A minor pentatonic scale as my fallback thing, right? So no matter what, you always have that. So now let's expand that for a little bit more of that Grateful Dead sound, just a little bit. Now, Jerry was big on the bluegrass music and folk music, and he played banjo forever before he was really psychedelic electric guitar hero. So a lot of that bluegrass kind of stuff seeps in to his playing. So one thing that we can do in a more minor, the Dead like to do a lot of major songs. This one in particular is minor, but so what we're going to do is we're just going to add the blues note, which would be right there on the 6th fret of the A string, 8th fret of the G string. You should hopefully know the blues scale already. So it's just adding that extra passing tone to the blues scale that we were already doing. So that's another thing that now we have this little extra flavor, and he'd like, Jerry might do something like, that kind of like da-da-da. And he did these little chromatic passing tones more than just on the blues note. But we're going to build up to that. So now we have the blues scale working over it. So we're still in that kind of fallback scale, right? We're not really playing over the changes yet. I'm just showing you that is a great way to, always be safe with what we were just doing, that blues scale, but then now explore and push yourself out into more chord tones and arpeggios and melodic playing. So we're going to add one more note, and this works for any of the chords. But what you're going to find is the more you practice over it, the more you're going to hear you're going to get used to which tones kind of end on which chords. And the big one in this progression is whenever it goes to the D chord, you go into that sound of D. I watched and listened to a bunch of different live Dead, and then even watched John Mayer in Dead and Company, all the same thing. You're playing a certain vibe, and then whenever it hits that D chord and holds on that D chord for 2 measures, that's when you just play all D major arpeggios, kind of a D mixolydian kind of thing, but you just emphasize all the notes of D for that part. So we'll get to that. But the next thing I want to do is add what's called the 9 to the scale. And it's a B natural note. And it's not, when you start to get into these half steps, there's certain chords in the progression where it's not going to sound resolved, but it's not going to sound bad either. So we're going to add this note here. And then that note happens again right here. So we're just adding that to what we were already doing. So you'd have this. Now the blues note, which is right here on the 8th fret of the G string, is also right here on the 3rd fret of the B string. So there's this little thing that I've definitely heard Jerry do where you play it like this. So it's almost like a Jerry minor scale. And so I just did 4, 5, 7, and then I did 4, 5 on the B string. Now, the 9 that we just added, which was the B natural, is right here. 7 of the low E, 4 on the G, but then also 7 on the high E. just remember, if you start to get confused by that stuff, just go right back to the A minor pentatonic or the A blues scale. So now I'm going to emphasize, well, now we're just still thinking of it as just kind of a master scale that you can play with. And that 9, that B natural in this position, now it's great to know all the positions, but at least 2 here for right now. The B natural is right here on the 12 of the B. So that means you'd have... and then you'd have right there too. So that'd be 14 on the A that you'd add. So hopefully that made sense. I just, we started with the A minor pentatonic in the positions. Then we added the blues note. Then we added the 9. And there's going to be different fingerings to kind of mess with that. And feel free to leave stuff out and add stuff. I'm just stacking new ideas. You don't have to use all these at once. I recommend you don't use them all at once, okay? So let's keep talking now, because now we're actually getting into playing over the chord changes a bit. Now, whenever it's on a G chord or an E minor chord, and you're playing these positions, and you kind of want to get used to the chord progression and know it pretty well, and we're going to talk about practicing the arpeggios over it as well for great musicianship, great practice. But so whenever it's on a G chord, or when it's on an E minor chord, anytime it's hitting that E minor or G major, that's when this 9, this B natural, is a strong note for both those chords. Is it a bad note for A minor and D? Not really, but it's not a strong note. It's okay if you hit it, and especially if you're using your ear and it's on A minor and you're playing that, your ear might start to hear where that particular chord resolves. But so watch on the G, so A minor, you can hear that, right? And that's a D note for the D chord, right? So I hit that for the E minor as well. Do it up here. So I was just using my ear there. I wasn't fully aware when it was going to be there, but I can start to hear it, and the more you practice it, the more you'll hear it. Now that was D, which I haven't showed you yet. Watch, straight back to the A minor pentatonic, it's going to work. Now let me show you something that's really part of Jerry's bag, and that is adding a chromatic tone, you know, a little half-step thing, going up to the root from what's called the 7 there. So like in this spot, it'd be really good and real easy to play it right here. So it's just like a new thing. It's not the blues note, it's just literally a passing tone. So now you'd have it tends to sound better, or he tends to do it more on the way up than the way down, but he'll do it that way too, especially with a trill. But check it out. Now you're almost playing every single note, right? So you don't want to just bombard across the neck, but these are all options. So, you know, you don't always have to add every note that I've showed you. Another thing is he'll do the opposite of that on the, from D down to C. And so I was starting to add some of that. I mean, really any whole step in the Jerry, you know, scale stuff, any whole step he may chromatically go up to it, and that's just part of that sound. So the other thing we want to talk about is playing over whenever it goes to the D chord, and then just knowing the arpeggio for every chord, just as a guitar player, it's really helpful. So let's see. We have these positions here. And then we had up here. So now if we want to dig a little deeper into playing over the chords, we use the concept up to this point, which is, you know, this kind of hybrid scale that we're going to use elements of that sound good to us, and we're going to experiment and get better at it the more repetitions we get over the progression. But it's nice to emphasize this B natural note whenever it's a G major chord or an E minor chord. It's the strong note in there. So now whenever it goes to D, and by the way, the D lasts longer than the other chords in the progression, right? So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. And so now let's talk about whenever it hits that D chord. Now everything we've done so far is going to work, but the real note, the really, really strong note, is the F sharp note, which we haven't played yet. The F sharp doesn't sound really great over the other chords, but it's the note you want. It's that cherry pick note for the D major chord. It's right here. So that's the 4th of the D. And then it's the 7th of the B, All the other notes of the scale work as well, but now up here, the F sharp's right here on the 11th of the G. And it's also on the 14th of the high E. So watch, I'm going to use this Jerry scale. I just made that up as I'm teaching. I never thought of a Jerry scale. I'm just saying it for right now. So we have this kind of A minor blues scale with the 9 in there and some chromatics. You know, in different combinations, and then the same thing up here. And then whenever it gets to that D chord, I'm going to play the scale, but really lay into that F sharp. Now back. A minor thing. Up here. Now, it's a lot of trial and error. Having the looper pedal is just so valuable. And then I think also the concept that I've talked about here, where if you get lost or you don't know the progression that well, or you just say, screw it, I can't do that yet, or I'm still working on it, you always have that blues scale right there to kind of help you jump back in, you know? Like you can stick right in there and then still go for those chord tones and whatnot. Okay, something I didn't bring up yet. One of the most valuable things, I think, in any great guitar solo, but I think of Jerry a lot with this. Let's see, who else? Like, even Nirvana is a great example, is where you really learn the vocal melody really well on guitar, and then play around the melody. And that's where really improvised solos came from in the first place with like Louis Armstrong. You know, he was playing, you know, the melody and then dancing around it, right? So just something that happens. You know, kind of so just check out a little this opening melody that Jerry, and I saw John Mayer do it too. It just really emphasizes that vocal melody. You know, just that kind of thing. So you're going A note, bend it up a whole step to the G note. So that's, what is that? 17, bend up, and then 15. And then climb up, which would be 15, 17, 19, 20. Those little half steps there. And it all comes from the concepts that we were already doing, but I'm starting to have fun. Yeah, fun, fun, fun. So knowing your melodies, like I was saying, Nirvana, like a lot of the guitar solos in Nirvana are just the vocal melody on guitar. But that is just super valuable to be able to pick out melodies. It's great for your ear. It's great for your musicianship, your playing. It makes you more melodic. And people also listeners recognize that melody as well that they've been hearing in the song. So they'll connect with you as well. So last thing, arpeggios. Arpeggios. That could be a couple hours long of lessons, but just to give you an idea, you could go into one position, like I'll use this main position here, and play the arpeggios for every chord of the progression, okay? I'm not going to break them all down meticulously, but I'll show you the concept. So A minor to G. So here's my A minor arpeggio. Arpeggios are just the notes of the chord. I could just do it from the D string. Now here's the G major arpeggio. And remember I talked about that note? 5, 4, 7, 8, 7. You know this little D shape here? Those were all arpeggios. So A minor up here looks like the D minor shape. You know, D minor, E minor, F minor, G minor, A minor, G major. Right? Let's keep going. C major, I'm going to keep it in this position. A C major arpeggio. You have that Hendrix major chord right here. And then D major, woo, one that's very familiar. And so that looks like this. So remember, A minor, G major, C major, D major. Crazy, huh? The more you practice that, the more You don't have to, it's not a great solo just playing the arpeggios of every chord, but you're truly playing the strongest notes possible for each chord. And you can really build melodies around the arpeggios, So just to keep going here, and if you're still watching, I'm proud of you, and thank you. So now C major to E minor. So C major we already did. And so E minor. And I'm going to use a minor 7 arpeggio. And what you end up learning is that it's the G major arpeggio. If you play E minor 7 arpeggio, it's all the same notes as G major arpeggio, which is pretty interesting. Except the only difference is you got to throw an E note into that G major arpeggio. But so anyway, A minor, G major, C major, D major, remember that F sharp note? And then C major, and now we need E minor, A minor. Hopefully you're hearing that. So then you've got a whole set. You can do arpeggios up and down the entire neck. And just to let you know, I am looking down at the chords as I was just doing that. So let's recap, and then you guys have some fun. Have some fun. You don't have to get this all in one sitting. So we started with the A minor pentatonic. And then we added the blues note. Then we added the 9. Oops. Then we added the chromatic from G up to A. And then we also did the chromatic backwards from the D to C. Okay. Then we learned that whenever it's an E minor or a G major, we can really emphasize that B, which we already added to the scale. Then we learned that whenever it's on the D chord, which is typically longer than the other chords, we want to emphasize that F sharp. But not limiting the other notes, and then also the D major arpeggio, and even D mixolydian over that too. Then we learned that learning the vocal melody along with all that stuff is extremely valuable. Then we also just kind of looked at arpeggios. Right? And then we put it all together in a stew and we practice away. If you made it to this part of the video, slow clap for you. Thanks again for supporting Marty Music, you guys. And if you like this kind of thing where I dig deep, you got to let me know in the comments below because it's a very long video. So it takes some time to do the... I just screw up these endings sometimes, I don't know. I just don't know.